is not a test. This is your emergency broadcast system announcing the commencement of the annual purge sanctioned by the U.S. government.
Chain. Wait a minute. Wait. That's all we have is a chain? I thought we got the stand-in security system.
I know. We talked about it, but you said it was too expensive for one day, remember?
That's ridiculous.
Well,
that's exactly something I would say. Wow, that was very poor planning. All right, I guess it's just hammer and chain and us surviving the purge.
Hopefully.
So let's talk about the purge. Hi, I'm Dave, founder of Halloween Year Round, and while those masked marauders are out there purging, I'm going to hide out in here for the next 12 hours. And while I do, I feel like I should do something to pass the time. I know! How about we rank the entire Purge series? So, as you know, the Purge is a series that began in 2013 with a sort of quiet little sleeper hit that was done for only about $1 million, and it grew into one of the most bizarre but somehow very, very relevant action horror movie franchises I think I've ever seen. This was a series that, granted, never knew how to be subtle. It did always seem a bit heavy-handed, but it's scary how it actually feels like it got more relevant as time went on. And there was a moment where, in the beginning, art was imitating life, but then at a certain point, it feels like real life started imitating art, and then the art then had to imitate and escalate to the absurdity of the life to match what was happening, and it's just... we are in the darkest timeline. So with the release of the Forever Purge, which I just saw the other day, I wanted to go back and I rewatched the entire series, including the TV show, which I will include on here. I'm going to include each season is going to be its own entity to be included here. So I'm going to be ranking all 5 Purge movies as well as both seasons of the USA TV show. From obviously my least to most favorite. Now, to be fair, I don't dislike any of these. I think every single one of them, even the ones that, are more flawed than others, they certainly have a lot going for them. This is just my personal opinion. I would love to see what you guys think. Which are your most and least favorites? Leave them in the comments. What would you do on Purge night? Leave that in the comments as well. Just try not to get too specific or graphic, or the NSA will be tracking you. I'm just kidding. They already are. So without further ado, let's get to the list. Number 7, The Purge. So most of the time when I'm doing these lists, the first movie from them is usually like in the number 1 or 2 spot. It's very unusual that it's so far behind, but that doesn't... I think that's a good thing, and here's why. Now, of course, I'm talking, about the original, the First Purge movie, not to be confused with The First Purge, which was the 2018 prequel. I'm talking about the movie that started it all, the Ethan Hawke home invasion movie that was just, the little franchise that could. So this movie does a good job of setting up the entire premise. But again, it's a bit limited by its budget. So all we really see is the purge from the point of view of this wealthy family, particularly the family of James Sandin, who, designed this security system that rich people use to protect themselves. So I like how it touches upon those ideas, but it doesn't really have the resources or the means to really get into them or explore them. So it does kind of just turn into this home invasion movie where it feels like 80% of it is just characters in the dark. And, there's not a real good sense of geography there. You don't really get a sense of the layout of the house. It's just like, this character's in this corner, and this character's in this room, in this corner. And you don't really know who's who or where's what. Again, all issues of, I get it, they had a low budget, they did what they could, but the most important thing they did was they got the idea out there, they turned this movie into a success, and they built this franchise that would kind of grow into something I don't think that James DeMonaco ever could have predicted, when making the original Purge movie. Number 6, The Purge TV series, Season 1. Now, I will admit, when I heard they were doing a Purge TV show, and it wasn't going to be on, like, HBO or Showtime, I'm like, how are you going to do that? It's on USA? What I love about Season 1 is that it just feels like this, this, like, 10-hour-long movie miniseries that all takes place over Purge night, almost in real time, minus the urgency, and that's why it's kind of lower on this list. So again, like the first movie, this is a show that has really cool ideas. It explores, characters who are philanthropists trying to kind of take advantage of the NFFA and realizing that you can't really do business with them without getting your hands dirty. I love the idea of that cult where they're like, oh, sacrifice yourself to the Purge. But again, kind of like the first movie, the first season of the show, it has cool ideas, but it doesn't really know how to execute them all that well. It was definitely an enjoyable watch. I like that it kind of analyzed the Purge from different perspectives, but that was another example where the first season kind of got it started so that the next one could surpass it. Number 5, The First Purge. So now I am referring to the 2018 prequel called The First Purge, about the original Purge experiment that took place on Staten Island. Following election year, I thought it was kind of an odd choice to go back and do a prequel. There's not a whole lot that this movie does that the other ones didn't already do. It has some likable characters. I'll admit, Skeletor is one creepy something, and he makes for a great villain. I love the sense of community where you have Dimitri and his gang, where they feel a real sense of ownership. This is our town, this is our community, and we're not going to let these NFFA guys come in and just kill everybody. But I feel like it was a bit of a missed opportunity in that you have a prequel, and it's not about the NFFA coming into power. It's just another kind of Purge movie that's not that different than Anarchy, but it's not as good as Anarchy. And you have Marissa Tomei as the psychologist who comes up with the whole thing, but even she's not that much of a focus in the movie. She's very much a side character. I would have loved to have seen more of her research and digging into it, and this franchise would later on get into the whole, does purging actually work? Spoiler alert, it doesn't. It makes it worse. And they kind of touch upon that here, but again, the first Purge just feels like an example to kind of do the same thing over again, and I think that after election year, they weren't sure what to do with it, so they're like, prequel? Number 4, The Purge TV series, Season 2. Now, this is what I wanted from the Purge series. Every movie, basically, the whole plot revolves around the Purge itself. And when this season opened where, like, in the first episode, there's only, like, an hour left, I'm like, wait, what? Is this going to be like in flashback? And then it did something I wouldn't have even thought of, but I kind of love 10 times more, showing that year in between purges and what this world and society is like, and just how facets of the purge have kind of, injected themselves into every bit of life, even to the point that you have a children's show where they're like, just remember, children, the purge is for mommies and daddies to get out their worries. And it's like, oh my god. Like this is the dystopian propaganda that is happening in this world, but you never see because these movies only ever take place on Purge night. So I thought it was such a cool concept to see what's happening the rest of the year, from Remembrance Day to the Doctor, Marcus, how they didn't get him on Purge night, so he has a year to figure out who's trying to kill him, to, Esme making that discovery that they kind of hinted at with the first Purge when the experiment didn't go the right way, that, purging actually makes things worse. It actually makes people more aggressive. Big shocker that, letting people kill people would just kind of fuel that even more. Number 3, the Forever Purge. And I'll link my full review of it that I wrote on the website, so I won't be able to get into too much here because I don't want to spoil anything. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. But this movie freaked me out because there were elements of it that echoed certain recent events from like earlier 2021, but this movie was shot in late 2019, early 2020. So again, you have the Purge series kind of predicting where things are heading, and, either James DeMonaco is in fact a fortune teller, or he's just very perceptive. So the idea that, the Purge ultimately leads to this just nationwide chaos and really almost civil war, and the fact that the NFFA kind of created a monster that they can no longer control is all very prophetic. It's very sobering, and it's very frightening because, again, it mirrors real life a little bit too much. That said, probably one of the more heavy-handed of all of them, with the whole, you have Josh Lucas's character, who at the very beginning is not so subtly, prejudiced against Mexicans, and it's not even, he's just like, oh, I don't want my kids speaking Spanish. And then by the, later on, he's like, not like that anymore. I just think that it was, the way they handled it was a bit like 90s after school special. I say that as a Mexican myself. I can say that. But, and that's another thing. It was cool to see all these Purge movies take place at night, and it was just a really cool contrast to see purging happening not only in broad daylight, but in the desert in Texas, where it is bright, it is sunny, and nothing is hidden in the shadows. It had a very Western, almost Mad Max feel to it. Number 2, the Purge election year. Talk about social relevance. I mean, this one was very intentional, releasing this July 4th weekend in 2016, which, not only an election year, but one of the most, what's the word, insane election years, for those who remember it. I know 2020 was so long that 2016 seems like a decade ago. But again, I love the return of Leo, of Frank Grillo's character from Anarchy. This is a series that the Purge itself is the main character, in that you can swap out, different characters here and there. And just, the series is about the Purge itself. But I liked seeing his arc continue from trying to purge to trying to protect Senator Roan to outlaw the Purge. So I loved the whole political part of it, the election cycle and all that. I thought that was a really cool lens to analyze the Purge. Of course, the NFFA would try to use the Purge to eliminate their enemy. And of course, they would say, well, for this one, no one is exempt. But that means them too, which later came back to bite them. But I love where it went with this. It was a natural place to go, especially with the real life, U.S. presidential election. But again, this is a series that doesn't really know subtlety, and it just felt a bit more heavy-handed and on the nose than Anarchy did, where you have that, a character telling Senator Roan, listen, I know the secret that's gonna help you win. Do you want to hear it? She's like, yeah, what's the secret? You gotta win Florida. Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know that. Florida's only considered one of the most important swing states, in the country. And finally, number 1, The Purge, Anarchy. This was everything we wanted from a Purge movie. After the original came out and everyone was like, oh, well, it would have been kind of cool to see, like, chaos in the streets and all the fighting and more than just this one suburban house. The Purge, Anarchy delivered. And the first movie kind of set up the whole, rich-poor disparity. This movie runs with it with probably my favorite character in the whole series, Carmelo Johns, who, again, Dante Bishop kind of takes over that role, of his organization in election year. I like Carmelo a little better. He's a little bit more fiery. He's a little... You don't mess with that guy. You have Leo with his mission. You have the mother and daughter from the tenements. You have that bickering couple who gets stranded, and I love how it kind of pulls people from different walks of life, forces them together to go through Purge together, and it delivers on everything you wanted to see out of this series. And it was before the series tried to do too much. Again, this is 2 years before election year. This is before it gets a little too ambitious with social commentary. This is also before the real world got that crazy. So seeing this back in 2014, it was still enjoyable as a work of fantasy and not representative of the real world. So that is why Anarchy, to this day, it'll always be my favorite. It's the most efficient at achieving what it's trying to do, both as a movie and as a piece of social commentary. So that is my list. Again, I would love to hear what your favorites are. Leave them in the comments. And remember, also tell me what you would do on Purge night. Remember to like, share, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff. If you don't, we'll see what happens on Purge night. You can also check out the website, HalloweenYearRound.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. I will be back next week with something. We'll see. And as always, until we meet again, stay scared. And remember, every day is Halloween.